Hi, good evening, everybody. Today we are going to talk a little bit about, with the encouragement of Rajkumar Bhrata and Jaikumar Bhrata, I want to talk a little bit about Manichaeism as a religion and the story of the life of Mani, who was a Persian philosopher and saint. He was actually a monk. He was celibate and the whole 9 yards. He was vegan, celibate, all of those things. The religion that he founded lasted for several hundred years. It was founded in 242 AD. It lasted until even 1200, 1300, and even as recently as 17 and 1800s, people in France, in Germany, in Russia, in Bulgaria, and all these places have traced the origin of their individual variants of their religions to Manichaeism. And there's one more very interesting fact about the religion and its current state. So just remind me, this is not the time to talk about it, but I want to be reminded to talk about it later on in the talk. Okay, so what got me started in all this was, we are bombarded by all these messages that we're hearing about conversion and how Christianity and, breaking India apart, Christianity is getting in, and our own people are getting converted to religions. I mean, when they've been Hindus for generations, whether they've been upper caste or any other caste of Hindus. And the thought arose in me that, it is kind of just going on, but one thing was, I knew that a lot of the ancient Christian texts were written in this language called Aramaic, and that is the Armenian language. And interestingly, I found that, a lot of the Tamilian last names end in the AN like the Armenian last names. So, for instance, Shambhu had a teacher in school in first grade. Her name was Nazarian. And if you look at Nazarian and Natarajan, there's some sort of similarity in the sound of it. There's no other part in the world where they have names ending in AN. It's only in Madras, Tamil Nadu, and in Armenia. The names are not the same, but there is a very profound, superficial similarity between the names. So that was one data point. The second data point was Madras has an Armenian street. There's a church, it goes back several hundred years, and Armenian street, I said let's triangulate these three data points. One is that Christ's preachings were in the Aramaic language. One is that, Tamilian names end with AN like Armenian names. And one is that there seems to have been a pretty significant Armenian settlement in Madras. And around the same time, I had also, Shambhu was an only child, and I had also sent his saliva to this company called 23andMe, which is a genetic testing company that determines your origins and your predispositions to different diseases. And in our case, we sent it for him because we were looking for cousins for him. We thought they have a database of 75,000 or 100,000 people in the United States that they've tested the salivary DNA for, and we wanted to see if there was any, anybody that we could call a third cousin or a fourth cousin, or just somebody to call up and see, hey, people talk about family reunions. Well, for us, it's just the 3 families, 10 people, okay? So maybe there's a third cousin and their family that will be willing to, we just thought we'd try to see if we can build up a little bit more of a crowd. Okay, so, and I thought it would sort of pacify him to know that there are people. So we sent the saliva. And what came back was very, actually upsetting a little bit to me, but also very interesting. His paternal haplogroup is something called R1A1A, which is found in North India. It's found in 100% of Ukrainian men, it's found in 50% of Polish men, and it is found in 1/3 of Swedish men. So these are the only 4 groups of men in whom that thing is found. Of course, it's found in India. Nobody's taking that away. But in other parts of the world, it's found in these 3 other places. And his maternal haplogroup is U1A3, which is which is all over India, and it's much broader swath, Central Asia. And then they did in fact, I'd like to show you that picture of his chromosomal data. They did something called chromosome painting. So they had navy blue color for Caucasian, orange color for Asian, which is Oriental, and green color for black. Or African. And in his 23 pairs of chromosomes, what came back was it was 84% Caucasian and 80, yeah, 16% Oriental. So my child has Chinese blood to the extent of 1/8. And it all comes from his mother, not from his dad. Okay, and this was the upsetting part. Then I had to put a spin on it and tell him that maybe you're descended from Genghis Khan or something. By the way, Genghis Khan is, it's said to have fathered the maximum number of forebears of today's. I mean, like if there's one individual that you can actually trace historically, it would be Genghis Khan, who's had the maximum sort of, in Tamil they have a crude word for it. But anyway. Alright. Okay, so the point was that was actually very surprising. Then I'd also read somewhere about the St. Thomas legend of Mylapore, which the apostle St. Thomas of Jesus Christ is supposed to have come to Madras while he was preaching Christianity. And supposedly some Brahmin people got together in Mylapore and killed him. And so there is a St. Thomas Cathedral in Santon, which is a Portuguese cathedral which was built in the 1600s or something. And they have carried that myth all these years. In fact, all the Christians in India talk about how St. Thomas was murdered in Mylapore. I mean, they actually will tell you it was Mylapore, it was done by a Tamil. I mean, they've been so indoctrinated about that. Now there is actually a white man who has written a whole treatise. He calls himself Devishan. Right, he has written a whole thing about he has countered the whole thing. He has said St. Thomas, there's no proof that he ever came here. All these things. And what was interesting was, I said, what if that is true? Now, maybe it didn't happen in 32 AD or 50 or 60 AD, whenever he's supposed to have come in that area. But why would somebody that's settled in Madras kill that man? That was one of the sort of questions in the back of my mind. Okay, so that is another thing. Then, so I was starting to research Armenia-India trade, and it went back like 7,000, 8,000 years ago, even since before we have written records. Armenians have traded with every part of the world. For some reason, they were very, outgoing seafarers, even before the Greeks. In fact, they have influenced Greeks a lot because, and I also found out while doing this that Armenia was the first Christian nation on the planet. In the year around 300 AD, I think, in fact, maybe exactly 300 AD, they adopted Christianity as the religion of their peoples, their nation. Now, around the same time, I was, while doing the Armenia-India trade relations, while I was looking that up, there was some translated document that was coming up from something called the Occidental Armenian College of Calcutta. And in this college, they have some man in the 1800s has come from Armenia, and he studied some ancient Aramaic documents. Because New Aramaic is not like Old Aramaic. He has taught himself the old language, and he has translated this. And what this is a documentation of the mantri, the minister of the king who ruled Armenia in that year, 300, around 300. Now, around the same year in which the nation adopted Christianity as a religion, 1,500 Hindus were massacred in Armenia. Okay, this is fact number one. Now, how did Hindus end up in Armenia in the first place? Okay, so about 150 BC, there were according to this minister who's written the account of the Hindus in Armenia, he says there were two princes, Indian princes from North India who were dark skinned, dark haired. They have no bones about describing us as dark. Just take a look in the mirror, folks. Okay, so these people, they were Demeter and Gisane, and they tried to overthrow their father as king, and he exiled them. So they ran away from their country or kingdom to Armenia, where they were given asylum by the Armenian king. There they set up a Hindu colony. Within 15 years, they were beheaded by the Armenian king, the two brothers. And the minister is hypothesizing that they were up to the same shenanigans with the king there that they were trying to do with their dad. Now these guys must have been rulers. I mean, they were, they felt Engelkenna Korchal kind of, in what way are we less than any of these people? They felt like that when they went there, and they incurred his wrath and he beheaded them. Well, by then there was enough Indians there that were deeply traumatized by this. They built 2 Hindu temples to these 2 brothers. So they are the deities in the temples, Gisane and Demeter. He has written, I don't know, because I don't know more about that may be one point to look into, is exactly who are the deities in these Armenian temples. But the ruins exist even today. They are near Yerevan, I think, right? The capital of Armenia. So, and actually Rajkumar ji was saying that they are Krishna temple.
Krishna and Shiva. Demeter is
and Shiva. Oh.
Demeter is the name for Shiva.
Oh, okay. I didn't
know.
So
Jisna is Krishna.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's good to know. That's really good to know. I had no idea. So, what has happened is that colony has grown into 6,000 people by 300 AD. In 300 AD, they were given an ultimatum: convert to Christianity or perish. Now, the person who persuaded the Armenian king at that time, and this I had read but I didn't remember, but you told me it in a very timely manner, it was somebody called Gregory the Illuminator. He's Saint Gregory or whatever they call him. He had persuaded the Armenian king to take this action and to solidify and fortify Armenia as the stronghold of Christianity. Now, they were given the ultimatum, and apparently none of them agreed to convert. And so they had war, and 1,500 of them were killed. We don't know what happened to the other 4,500, whether they were assimilated. I'm assuming the 1,500 were men. So the other 4,500 would be women and children. Either they were assimilated, or at least some of them may have returned. Maybe some of the men returned too. And so I'm thinking maybe that's who the Tamil people are with the same last name. Okay. Then I also found out about Mani at the same time. Then Mani, when I started digging about this man, because I remember in our history textbook, now I was an A student in history. I mean, whatever they call A here, but I would get very high marks in history in school on my favorite subjects. I remember there's one line in the CBSE textbook that there was a Persian philosopher by the name Manes. Now, yeah, Persian philosopher by the name Manes, who was very famous and world renowned. So it turns out that Mani is the same person, and his mother named him Mani, which is Sanskrit for gem, which we know that. I mean, they have reported it in the Catholic encyclopedia. So then I started reading more and more. I still hadn't made any connections. I said, what is this? Very interesting. It's an Indian name. It's our way out there, and Rajkumar ji had said, show the map of that area. So I'm going to try to pull it up. One second. There was one very nice political map that came up. I think that's it. Okay. Now, shall I just turn this around?
Sure.
Oh wait, this is cut off for India. Wait a second. See, the thing with this kind of research is you don't need hard facts, because there are some fuzzy logic jumps you can do, and that's fun. It's fun to do that when you know whether you're planting your feet firmly on the ground or it's bog, and if you try to do that jump, it's going to be appropriate or not. Okay, so here it is. I think this one, yeah, it's showing Armenia. Okay. It's kind of a map. It's not the best. I think there was a better map earlier. So, do you want to come closer? This is India, right? Here's Pakistan. Here's Persia. And here is Armenia and Georgia. So if they were coming like this, they could be coming by sea and just crossing into land. It's not that far. I was thinking the land route is impossible. I mean, it's not, it's only sea that can get them that fast over there. you know. Can you see? Okay. So what I learned was Mani was born in modern day Baghdad in Iraq. His mother was this Arsacid dynasty princess, and she has been variously described as Armenian and Persian. Now, she clearly knew Sanskrit because she named her son. She's the one that's supposed to have named him.
You may want to check Persian. What is money in Persian? Because one thing I know, I've heard a little Persian. Something about the paradise on earth. Ami asto, I think. Who said it? Was it I think Babar or somebody who said that, if there is paradise on earth, this is it. That astu, that looks like Sanskrit. So maybe she didn't know Sanskrit. She named him Mani because Mani means exactly the same thing in Persian. So that's a hypothesis you don't want to check.
Okay, I will check that. I better write it down. Or record it will get transcribed, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, thank you for that. Then the second thing is his father is Patek from Syria. So, if we look at this map, Iraq is here, Iran, which is Persia, is here. Where's Syria? Syria is here. Armenia and Georgia are here. So, somehow that woman, okay, before I move on, who among you thinks that the massacre of the Hindus and the adoption of Christianity by the Armenian nation are related? Other than you're told, either you convert or we kill you. Other than that connection, why should they be killed?
See, I don't know about how the spread of Christianity happened in the early days, but
Yes.
I'm assuming maybe this was the dominant model, unless later they became more evangelical. So it was probably
It could be. What I thought was there is another possibility, and the possibility is that the religion came from the Hinduism. They didn't have anything like it. They said now we've either created it or now it's been given to us, or whatever it is, take it or not. So why would they not convert? After all, they've lived there for 450 years. Because it came from them. It was taking maybe the best, or taking certain portions that they wanted to take and leaving the other portions out, whatever. But I think they were also related, that the massacre in Armenia of the Hindus was related to Armenia adopting Christianity, and it was not just the visible reason that you convert or we kill you, but there was a deeper reason, which was that this religion was completely taking the elements of that. Now here is where I've completely taken out that whole piece of the Judaism, because these are the people that will claim anything that is in power, in the majority, whatever, they have the potential of claiming it as their own.
I'll add one data point to what you're saying over Priya.
Yes.
This is that when the Roman Empire adopted Christianity,
Yes.
the form of Christianity, I'm not saying what it was.
Yes.
When they adopted Christianity, one of the first things they did was they had an event for canonization of the text. Canonization means saying this is the text that we use.
St. James.
Yes, there were more than 120, 130 texts at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was they forcibly said these are the 4 Gospels that we're going to select.
Okay.
That's the New Testament that goes forward.
Mm-hmm.
Not just that.
Okay.
Anybody found in possession of the older texts, are not prescribed texts, will be
Yes.
punished by death.
Yes. They did that to Manichaeism also.
By death. So
Yes.
it
Blasphemy
was
kind of law.
yes, it was a very, very strict thing. So they made it so difficult for practitioners of other faiths to have anything what they did not sanction.
Wow.
So that can help you in your
That's-
thesis over here.
thank
That
you.
it was not just let's follow this kind of thing.
Right.
It was even if you have a text at home that is forbidden, you'll be killed.
So it must have originated in Armenia, and then it has gone to.
But wasn't it the Empire Constantine?
Yes,
Yeah,
he was the first one who adopted Christianity, and then I'm not sure that was he who ordered the Council of Nicaea. It was the Council of
Yes.
Nicaea at 325 CE, current era. They had the meeting of the bishops, so-called bishops at that point, who codified what Christianity will be.
By the way, the bishops of Christianity look identical to the electi of Manichaeism. The same flowing robes, Angavastram, and they have a long, tall Talapa.
I would like to also have a slightly alternative viewpoint what you're saying. You consider it, you can use it in your thesis to strengthen it, or it might weaken what you're saying.
It may, yes, I'm very open to that. I want to say that.
At that point in history, a dominant religion in that area, well known, was that of Buddhism. Buddhism was there from Gandhara in Afghanistan, it was known in Syria, it was known in all of these places, right from the time of Alexander in fact. Right. When the Greeks came, right from that time, their historians are mentioned about both the Shamanas who were the Jains, as well as the Buddhists. Both were known to that. The fact that Buddhists had Sangha, they had the monastic order, the orange robes, the shaven heads, the women who would shave their heads and follow chastity laws and things like that. Everything was very well known and codified. This was adopted wholesale by the Catholic Church in 325.
Yes, I totally
And they became the padres who would also take the vow of chastity, form the monastic order, wear the robes, in this case adopted white, and the nuns would do the same thing, shave their heads and say they're brides of Christ and do that. So just a data point, but you may like to keep that in mind, because my thesis has been that they adopted it from Buddhism. But you may want to incorporate it appropriately in what you're saying.
Sure, thank you. I will. Then what we found was Spartak is the father from Syria, the mother is Miriam from Persia. He was born in 216 AD, 216. And they call it an Elkasite, which is a pre-Judeo-Christian sect. These were people that lived there that practiced a form of, it's called Gnosticism or Gnosis type of religion, where they acknowledged the existence of God. They worship. They had very ritualistic practices to propitiate God and things like that. And I'm sorry, just a bit of sinus. Okay, so in 242 AD, he is supposed to have had this vision. Now, his father was his constant companion and his chief disciple. And that is also very similar to our culture, where the father, we all know Swami's story. But the father supporting the son so much, and the son, telling the father to be the disciple, go spread my word. That kind of thing is also unusual, I think, in those days. And so in 242, he had a vision in which he saw this light form. And this light form entered his body. And it gave him an opening up of his, it just opened up his spirit, his awareness, his knowledge and all that to an infinite level. So then he put forth the religion, and he said, we should have the people who are practicing the religion, then we have the electi, and then we have a senate of people. So it sounded like a tiered religious system, but without its being birth-based. It was based on whether you could stick to the chasteness, the virtue and celibacy and veganism. You could pray 5 times a day. You could stick to the 10 commandments. All this he has written. He has written the 10 commandments. He said pray 5 times a day. That part is like a little bit like Islam. But I am also told by Tattvamasi that I believe Brahmins are supposed to do it 5 times a day. Did you know
3
that?
times a day.
5 no sonna.
Okay, like as temple sometimes you have 6 kala puja. Maybe I don't know if that mirrors this. But only 3 times we have worship. But you are right. There is some set, like Sri Vidyanal, you have certain pujas, you have to do it at certain, one in the morning, one pre-dawn, one Uchikalam, Saya Raksha. So we also have a 4 kala puja, 6 kala puja. So I
that puja, but individual prayer. இப்போ இவ Islam people மெக்கா பாத்தன் பண்ணுவாளையா அந்த மாதிரி இவ in fact he has taught a prayer. He has said, you invoke the rivers and you invoke Mitra, Varuna, Indra and all that, and then you yeah. And he said we are supposed to do it 5 times a day. That's what I remember from but
check
this
the thing, is it 5 or 3? Because 3 is the sanctioned.
Okay, I'll check with him.
3 kalam we know. We don't know about 5 columns.
Okay, I'll check with him. I remember it as 5, and to me, when I saw this, I was like, oh my God, it fits. The way he has described it, it fits. Then he has also composed thousands of hymns, and the hymns are Omen, Lord that rises in the east, Omen, guider of the ships that are out in the sea, Omen, A-U-M-E-N, Omen, Omen, like that. And now, of course, now they've changed it to
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, that lot of people say the Om,
I know, but here there's actually, the hymn sounds even like what we are chanting in Sanskrit. I mean, the translation of it. You know, they're not, you know. Then what happened was, the minute he had that vision, he persuaded the Persian king to adopt the religion. And immediately, and he, now if you read all the Christian authors' writings, like the Catholic Encyclopedia and all, they are saying that he took it from Christianity, he took it from Buddhism, he took it from ancient Zoroastrianism. As usual, Hinduism is the non-existent invisible entity in all of these books. They don't even acknowledge its existence. And so then I made another big assumption. And I said they have a vested interest. If they massacred the Hindus for a reason other than the fact that they did not convert, then by extension they have a vested interest to introduce the name of Christ in Mani's writings in order to antedate Christianity before Manichaeism. So, if-then hypothesis. Yada this, tada that. Okay? So, if you delete the references to Christ in the so-called, the so-called references to Christ, what Mani has said is Isho. I took my teachings from Isho. I took my teachings from, I don't know if he said Buddha, they are claiming he said Buddha and Zoroaster. Okay? Now, Mani is very clearly said Isho is a form of light. He has said that also. He has not actually talked about Isho in a way that, as if it's a human being that lived 200 years before him, that was a guru in a chain of gurus. That's all, they're claiming all that. He was one more guru in a chain of gurus and all that, Mani. And the gurus were Buddha, before that Krishna, then after Buddha, Christ, then Mani. Like that they're claiming. The Christian, the Catholic writings. Okay?
And I have a big problem with that. Especially once you read Rajiv Malhotra. This even the other organization that does this is the Paramahamsa Yogananda, self-realization philosophy. They are very clever. They kind of put Buddha, Krishna, Buddha, Christ, then Yogananda. But one thing, it doesn't matter. One thing is sure, all of these, each of them predates the other person. But that doesn't itself make an ordering possible. If you need something that is cyclic, that is disciplic succession of gurus, then each of them should have added to the thesis, not contradicted it, and they shouldn't have two contradicting theses.
Yes.
So that's the way you can call the bluff.
Now the interesting thing is, what Mani has written is vastly, copiously more than what any of the other people have written. It is copious. In fact, there are pictures of caves in Mongolia full of scrolls that Mani has written. That was discovered by the Germans in the 1800s, and they've taken it back to Cologne, which is a seat of Catholicism in Europe. And it is called the Cologne Mani Codex. Okay? Just keep that at the back of your minds. These Germans were also aware that the Jews were liars. I'm going to say it in a very blatant way. You never generalize. I don't like to say that. I know it might offend you as well. Please forgive me. But I don't want to say Jews are liars, but let's say that they had that impression based on what they read with the Manichaean texts. Then one of the, what Mani has done is, after converting the local Persian people, the first thing he has done is to take a conversion trip to India. He has been missing for 13 years. 13 years later, and whoever has been keeping track of his things have not written about him for 13 years in as much detail. Then he has returned to Persia. Then that king that was there has passed away. Then the next king has come, he has also adopted Manichaeism. Then he passed away within 2 years of his father or whatever. So the third king that came, now he goes back to Zoroastrianism, not to Christianity. He's going back to Zoroastrianism. And he decides to behead Mani. This is how it's described. His body is stuffed with straw and he's crucified. And on the third day, or whatever, how much, the typical Easter story, some 3 angels, women angels from heaven come and take him. And that is celebrated by the Manichaeans as a festival called Bema, which is analogous to Easter. So I said, okay, I mean, if he copied Christ, maybe he died in the same way, maybe he went to India and was missing in the same way like Christ, maybe he had an Easter function named after him just like Christ. He's copying Christ, right? So he arranged all these things so that it would be identical to Christ's life story. That's a joke. So, okay, so I said this is very interesting that his life story is so similar to that of Christ. At least superficially it seems like it's similar. Then let's read more. He has a disciple called Tauma. A-U-M-A. Tauma. This is the Indian Saint Thomas. So when Mani came and was in India for 13 years, Tauma came with him. Now Tauma by the Christians, in Tauma is written a lot. And that has been adopted as one of the apostolic writings in Christianity. But Christians call Thomas they call him Doubting Thomas, because he never actually refers to Jesus Christ in his writings. Okay, he never actually refers to Christ. He talks about it in vague terms. So he is the one disciple of Christ that is not considered to be, all there. Okay, he's kind of a bit of a flaky disciple. So then there are Marthomites in Kerala, who is a Christian sect that trace their entire origin. They are a form of Syrian Christianity. Of course, Syrian Christianity is the oldest Catholic church. And Marthomites are another competing. If you look at their website, everything is in Sanskrit, all their writings. Everything, their word for library, their word for their get-togethers, everything. And those bishops look identical to the Manichaean electi in Syria. Now, Mani was also called Mar-Mani and Mar-Thoma. And so the Marthomites is a distinct Catholic sect that traces its origin right up to Saint Thomas. And then I thought the oldest churches were Russian and Greek Orthodox churches, but actually Georgian and Armenian were older. And even older than those were the Syrian Christian and Marthomite churches. And so then I thought I would construct an alternate hypothesis, taking that if-then scenario. If the Hindus were killed for something more than just the fact that they would not convert, and the Jews were not really the givers of Christianity, then how it could have played out is Mani actually traveled all the way from Egypt to Siberia preaching his religion, and in fact from the time Mani died in 276 AD, which is only 24 years before Armenia adopted Christianity, from the time of his death until 1200 or 1300 AD, Manichaeism was the largest religion in the world. Larger than, I think this I have to verify, but I think it was larger than maybe Buddhism. I don't know for a fact. But it was definitely larger than Christianity. Then along comes this guy called Saint Augustine, who is the founder of Western Christianity, who attended that Nicene, or whatever it's called.
Council of Nicaea.
Yeah, that council. He was a Manichaean for 12 or 14 years before he threw away Manichaeism religion and adopted Christianity. Now, if Christianity was the older religion, would it not have been the other way? I'm just suggesting something. I'm not saying it's absolute done deal this way and that way. But it's also clearly documented how he was disgruntled with the Manichaean church or the Manichaean setup, because he was not advanced, because he had a concubine, he had children with that woman, he had a wife. He was a very flawed, deeply flawed human being. And in the Manichaean religion, there is no room for such people to ascend to the level of the Senate. Okay? So he has been a Manichaean trying to go up in that thing, and when he hit his ceiling, then he said, what the hell, and he switched to Christianity. This is my hypothesis. And he has written copiously against Manichaeism. Copious quantities against Manichaeism. In fact, he has written more against Manichaeism than he has written about Christianity. How about that? He has written more against Manichaeism, and then he is the one that forced them to punish all the Manichaeans with death. So they were systematically persecuted all over the world and killed. Now the Egyptian Coptic church, to a certain extent, also has a common origin from Manichaeism. What they're calling the Coptic Christianity. You remember that guy Nakula? Vasily Nakula, who's supposed to have released that videotape that caused the Benghazi thing. Nakula, by the way, is like Mahabharata Nakula. Nicola, Nakula, all that is the same origin word. And I also respectfully submit that Augustine is Augustine. I mean, everything is identical. The same consonants, the same sandhis, jointed like the in all that. Then the vowel sounds are identical. Okay. So anyway, the point is that Augustine has mounted a one-man campaign, and he has founded this. He went to Rome and he encouraged, I guess, Constantine to convert. This is a good 100 years after. Actually, more than 100 years after Armenia adopted Christianity as the official religion. So the Eastern Christian religions were the oldest forms of it, and Western Christianity followed, and it was after they absolutely made sure that this was, wiped out with punishment of death. Now the other interesting thing, as I go to Shambhu's school, I volunteer a lot. I participate in their art a la carte, and they had something on Greek vases. So I spent all day and night reading and learning about Greek vases and Greek art, because I had to give a little bit of a talk at least. And the lady who actually gave the talk on that, I had to do a little activity. The lady who gave the talk on that is supposedly an art curator from here. And she said these Greek pots called amphoras are the ones in which the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. And these are the oldest living documentation of the New Testament. And they were from 400 AD or something. The Dead Sea Scrolls that were found near Israel, they were in 400 or something. I mean, that's the oldest version of anything that can be attributed to be the source of the New Testament. And there were writings by all these people that they called, these four major apostles from whom they think they say the New Testament has come. But there were fragments of Manichaean scrolls in those amphora. Manichaean scrolls were there. Somebody had ripped it up. Okay, so this is just getting more and more interesting. So then I said, how would the whole, how would it have played out? Maybe Mani founded the religion, it was a huge success all the way from Egypt to Siberia. Maybe he decided to go back to Armenia where his mother was from to preach there. Maybe they picked up the elements of it. Maybe Gregory was there too, I don't know, or maybe he came from somewhere. Maybe they saw that he was preaching this and they wanted to assume the ownership of it. And so it was an ownership issue that caused the massacre and not the conversion issue. I mean, later on it has become it was ownership of intellectual property. That's the more, that is honestly no problem, I'll get it. The ownership issue is like a bigger issue. It is the theft issue. Whereas conversion is a relatively, you can be a good person and not convert. How does that affect me? You convert or not? If you look at it directly, monetarily, does it affect me? Power-wise, does it affect me? Yeah, maybe. But I can preach to everybody other than you. Those people also knew where it came from, because he was their daughter's son. Now, she may not have been an Indian. She may have been an Armenian woman who married, who was a child of an Armenian-Indian marriage. Okay, that woman Miriam. Okay, or if she was an Indian and she left Armenia, the persecution might have already started. If she came to Persia and whatnot. So the hypothesis is that maybe he went back, maybe they usurped the elements of the religion, and then they said, we own it, accept it or not. By then he's back here, and his disciple and he maybe they went to Armenia first, maybe then they came to India. and wait, I'm losing the train of thought here. Just give me a second. So yes, so he returns to Persia and he continues his propagation of the religion. And his disciple is that Saint Thomas, is Tauma, his disciple. And if he was killed, he lived beyond Mani's time. It's possible that some of those people returned to India that were involved in the massacre. If they were in Tamil Nadu, because that is the most favorable, furthest away from there, number one, in India. Number two, most strong Hindu culture there. So if they returned there, then it would be natural if this guy, even if he was Mani's man and he came there, they'd be like, don't come and teach us our own religion. That could have happened. Right? That could have happened. Now, the other thing is, I met and while I was reading about this, Mani, I read that there was a Gundeshapur University in Persia and a city called Gundeshapur, which was supposedly the first medical university in the world, as the Persians claim it, and the first medical hospital. And it was staffed entirely by Ayurvedic physicians. In fact, Persian, ancient Persian medicine is exactly Ayurveda. They have mantre, aushade. They actually have these Sanskrit words in Persian medicine. Now, Mani is supposed to have healed a lot of people in the Gundeshapur University. And this university is supposed to be set up in 270 AD. Now, if you ask the Persians, they'll say, oh, Jesus Christ is supposed to have done a lot of healing in the Gundeshapur. I mean, they're claiming legitimacy for Gundeshapur by saying that it was Christ. But the date that I'm finding in my research is that it was set up in 270. So the other thing is, even today, those remaining followers of Mani, the offshoot religions, they're called Bogomols, Cathars, Paulicians. All these religions have come from Manichaeism, not Christianity. And they all clearly say there was no Jesus Christ. There was no body called Jesus. It was only a light form, and it entered Mani, and it made him clearly see the difference between good and evil. And in fact, it is an adjective today in the English language. If you look up the dictionary and you look up the word Manichaean, it means somebody who sees things in very clear black and white. Right and wrong. No, it's like George Bush says, if you're either with us or you're against us. Make up your mind. You can't say, oh, I'm with you, but I don't really want to ally with you. I don't want to fight with you, but I'm really with you. No. You're either with us or you're against us. So Mani saw things in black and white, and the Catholic religion made fun of it. However, at no point have they said Manichaeism was outside of Catholicism. They have always claimed it